Hey, friends, welcome to another episode of Area 312 Rock and Metal Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Kent, along with my co host.
Rex.
Friends, regarding our very special guest today, he's carried the good stuff as retailers have only offered flavor of the day material. Like a fine vintage wine, he's curated the classics since the late 90s that I've known him. And today, our very special guest, he operates Boone's Overstock, one of the big three Christian rock and metal vendors, and he offers the classics as well as new releases, both in the Christian and mainstream media. And friends, today, our very special guest is Matthew Hunt. Welcome, Matt. It's an honor to have you, brother.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here. I love what you guys do. I was excited. I don't really get asked to do this stuff much, but I was super excited when you guys wanted me on there.
Well, it's an honor to have you. And friends, I'm going to take the heat. I asked Matt, I looked and I'm horrible with time. Matt, I think it was a couple years ago, I'd asked you, would you be willing to come on at some point? And you said, sure. And
Yeah,
forgive me.
yeah, nothing to forgive, nothing to forgive.
Time slips away, but it's an
Yeah,
honor to do this today. We're grateful for you, Matt, because as you know, our community is special as believers and of the type of music that we appreciate.
absolutely.
Yes, it's a very niche community, and I'm grateful for all of that. But you're someone who equips the saints, so thank you for
Yeah.
that. Let's delve into some of your history here, Matt, if you don't mind.
Okay. Yeah.
Tell me some of your personal favorite bands or artists, and then some of your favorite albums.
Okay. I'm just kind of I wrote some notes.
Sure.
And then I wrote more notes, and then I wrote more notes. So apparently, I like a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And part of the problem I had as a kid was that I did not have a very narrow musical palette. Like I liked a lot, and when you don't have very much money, then you got to make some real hard decisions. I was always jealous of those people that like one specific type of music and not much else. So I always applaud people that push their musical boundaries to see if their palette can change over time, or go back to that album that they heard good things about but they didn't connect with. I always appreciate people that do that because I do that all the time. But um some of my very favorite albums, U2's Joshua Tree. I don't love, I do like the entire U2 catalog, but starting with Joshua Tree to me is like a top three album, along with King's X Out of the Silent Planet, and then Alice Cooper's Brutal Planet, which, most people came to Alice Cooper in the classic era, but I grew up in a church that did not encourage us to listen to Christian or to secular music. So, when I was so ignorant about mainstream music that the first time I heard Bargain by the Who on radio, I'm like, dang, they covered Res Band. you know
Yeah.
and then it's like, oh wait, no, Res Band covered the Who. I just didn't know it for the last 15 years.
Right. Yeah.
And so, but I love that album. I love everything from Alice Cooper's Last Temptation on, and then I've gone back and enjoyed the classics. But the Last Temptation on, I cannot say enough about how great Alice Cooper's stuff is, how creative, how lyrically it is so solid and amazing. Um, I also like, and this is a little bit of a more obscure one, but I super love this. It started out as an REX title, Fleming and John, a male female duo. It is brilliant rock and roll. They put out, I think, only two albums, but and I like them both a lot, love them. But that first one, I saw them live in concert at Cornerstone Festival, and my mind was blown. And from that point on, I just was a huge fan of her voice, his guitars. It was just a perfect rock and roll album. I really love the Lost Dogs,
Oh,
that
yeah.
Americana sound. I wasn't even into Americana in the early 90s, and I remember pulling up to Cornerstone Festival hearing sort of this country-ish sound, and I'm like, who is that? And they're like, Lost Dogs. And from that point on, I fell in love with that. Later, and years later, probably 10 years later, at Cornerstone as well, at 2 o'clock in the morning, I heard this beautiful sound of male female country duo, Buddy and Julie Miller.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. I didn't know how much I loved that. I hated country. I thought I hated country
Right.
music. But that Buddy and that Americana sound, I
Mhm.
super love Buddy and Julie Miller, especially. I do love Julie's solo stuff too, but them together is tremendous. Daniel Amos, Adam again. One of my favorite albums that doesn't get much talk about it is a 1979 album that we reissued, and I'm so proud of it. It's one of my favorites by the Bill Mason Band called No Sham,
Mhm.
and it's like came out the same time. They were contemporaries. Yeah, right there. I love that album. It's like they are literally contemporaries with like the Ramones and the Clash, and it's just like no one knows how amazing that album is musically, and like the Jesus music stuff is
Mhm.
perfect. It is so good. It is one of my, oh yeah, all those Born Twice titles. I'm so proud of those
Yeah.
and love those so much. Yeah, that's a great album. Um, let's see. I do like Grave Robber's Inner Sanctum album.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Oh my gosh. I that just has like one perfect song after another. I love Inner Sanctum by Grave Robber. You can tell I do have a punk love for a little bit. And then Blood Good self-titled is my favorite Blood Good. Saint, it's so hard to pick a favorite, but you know, like I can't really separate Time's End and Too Late for Living. It's almost like they're companion pieces. Uh Deliverance, this is probably in the minority, but Stay of Execution is my favorite Deliverance album. It when I heard I liked Deliverance, but when I heard Stay of Execution, I fell deeply in love with Deliverance,
Mhm.
and it's brilliant. But then I found out how good Learn was. Their Eraserhead album by Jimmy Brown, and then no one talks about how good Jupiter 6 is, but they have an album called Movable Walls. And if you like Pink Floyd progressive rock, I don't know how it gets any better than that. It's completely brilliant, and no one knows about it, and very few people have it. But Movable Walls by Jupiter 6 is amazing. The first three Believers,
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, they're royalty, and
Yeah.
I grew up on those albums, and they are close to my heart. Getting to reissue those were some of the most it was one of the most exciting things I ever done in my life. Like
Mhm.
it was so great to be able to do those. Vengeance, Human Sacrifice was super important to me growing up. Daniel Band, Run from the Darkness.
Yep. Yep.
That one, you know, in the 80s, I was a hard rocker and
Mhm.
I loved that cover. They looked so great. You know, they looked like, yeah. I was so happy to get to reissue that and work. And on top of that, I just want to say some bands are hard to work with. Daniel Band are the real deal. They are amazing human beings. They're amazing band. It's an honor to be able to work with them.
Well, and today is Dan McCabe's birthday.
That's right. Happy birthday,
Happy
Dan. I
birthday,
think I did say
Dan.
it. That's
Today's
right.
what, the 12th of July. Happy birthday, Dan.
That's
Yes.
right. That's right. Um, you know, to go along with King's X, I love Doug Pinnick's solo stuff as Pound Hound.
Mhm.
For years, I thought Massive Groove was a better Pound Hound album than the second one. What's the
Pineapple skunk.
Pineapple Skunk? But once I reissued Pineapple Skunk, I started listening to it, and it's a total masterpiece. And I love Ty Tabor's from King's X, his
Mhm.
solo stuff,
Yeah.
especially Moonflower Lane. I probably listened to that a billion times when it came out, and his voice is unbelievable and just tremendous songs on that Moonflower Lane album. So those are great.
You released Super Shine too, did you not?
Oh yeah.
Love
Yeah,
that. Bruce Franklin of Treble and Doug Pinnick.
there is nothing not to like about Super Shine.
Mhm.
On the alternative side, really the album that got me to like alternative Christian rock was I was part of, you know, one of those CD clubs, and
Mhm.
you know, you go through all the stuff that you want, and then you're like, I got 12 more CDs that I got to order, so I guess I'll try this, you know. But I got the Choir's Circle Slide,
Yes, that's
And I just listened to it over and over
yeah.
and over and over again. And then that led to like in Michael Knott's stuff, like
Oh,
LSU's Great Prophet,
mhm.
Mike Knott Screaming Brittle Siren, and then Michael Knott's Rocket and a Bomb. I was going to seminary at the time and I had to commute a lot and it was on cassette and I listened to all those engaging stories. If you like that kind of engaging rock and roll that tells stories, and has great hooks musically, get Michael Knott's Rocket and a Bomb. It will not disappoint. It's very rewarding in
Jan the
every way.
Weatherman,
Huh?
Jan the Weatherman, and Kitty
Oh
Courtesy, and all
man,
those great
Kitty
ones.
Courtesy, like it's disturbing. I
What's in the
it's
pot?
it's a deeply disturbing album
Yeah,
and it's meant to be disturbing. If it doesn't disturb you, then you're not human. I don't think.
right.
I also love Tony O'Kay's Romeo Unchained. It's total brilliance. Undercover's Forum is great. Galactic Cowboys. This is probably going to be in the minority, but at the end of the day, with the Machine Fish Suite,
Mhm.
I,
Yeah,
I don't even know how you top that album.
yeah, it's great.
That and all the Galactic Cowboys are brilliant, but that one is special on so many levels. Scattered Few,
Yep.
I love that is some of the most creative punk rock you'll ever hear. So yeah,
Oh, let me turn it around.
those are amazing. I am so proud of those. Larry Norman's Only Visiting This Planet and Something New Under the Sun is like a hard rock blues album. I
Yeah.
didn't realize how aggressive the guitars are on Something New Under the Sun,
Mhm.
but it's they stand the test of time, and the lyrics on Only Visiting This Planet are
Yeah.
totally brilliant. Um, those actually every Sacred Warrior is
Yep.
basically a perfect album. I mean, I don't know how the one with the most charm is probably Rebellion, but that's just because I grew up listening to it so much. I love Rebellion. Seventh Angel, one of my favorite extreme metal. Yeah, one of my favorite extreme metal albums
So,
is by Seventh Angel called Dust of Years. Everybody else gravitates, and I'm not saying it's wrong, but they gravitate towards the Torment and probably Lament is heralded as sort of their epic album, and it is. I'm not discounting it at all, but like I just love Dust of Years because it just has a really like oh, it's brutal and it's in ways that I'd never heard before.
Ian
Um,
Arkley.
and then I don't know if too many people that listen to this have listened to A Hill to Die Upon, but they're kind of death black metal. They have brilliant lyrics, and it is totally in the vein of like Behemoth, but they're good and they're so good. Like everything they do is like extreme metal perfection. I never get tired of their albums. On the mainstream side, I'd like to bring up we put out a reissue by a band called Sacrifice. I'd never really heard of Sacrifice before. They're not a Christian band. I think they're a Swiss band, but it's thrash, very much progressive, sort of in the vein of like Believer, good lyrics. We put out Apocalypse Inside. I fell in love with that album. Don't get tired of it. The Awful Truth. That was one of my favorite reissues that we ever did. And it was sort of a highlight of my life to get to talk uh, to Wild Silas, Sam
Yeah.
Taylor, and get to like, he was just a delight to work with and to get to hear a lot of stories about him and Galactic Cowboys and the band and
So,
stuff.
Matt, on that,
Yeah,
Rex, help me out. Who was Wild Silas? That was who was the producer
Sam
for all?
Taylor.
Sam
Sam
Taylor.
Taylor.
Talk to Sam, huh?
The same guy that
Yeah.
produced those first few King's X
King's
albums
X, yeah.
Yes.
in Galactic Cowboys. Yeah.
Well, that's totally cool. You got to talk to Sam. I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
and he's a storyteller too. So I mean, it's like, oh man, I could just literally we'd get on the phone, it'd be like 2.5 hours later, and it's like, dang, I gotta go, but I don't wanna.
Yeah.
Some people you're on the phone with 2.5 hours and you're like, oh, I need a nap now. But not with Sam. He was so much fun to talk to and
I
listen
bet.
to. And
He's
yeah, I
put
wish
out
I could do some more stuff with him.
he's put out some of the most favorite albums of my lifetime. Between King's X and
I
Atomic
know.
Opera, Galactic Cowboys. I mean,
I know.
awful truth. That was awesome.
And then other favorite albums, the Res catalog is like next level.
Yep.
And then Bride's catalog,
Yep.
next level. Like whether you like the music or not, like it's all professional and it's all top-notch musicianship. Of course, I like Snakes a lot. I like the first three albums so much. But the truth is, they're probably putting out the best music of their lives the last 10 years. Like they don't put out stinkers. So
Mhm.
they're great. And yeah, those are so good. And
Awesome.
then, a band that also doesn't get talked too much about, but they really transcended their era and put out music that was lyrically and musically profound. And I don't use that word lightly, but they were profound, and that was Barnabas.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Nancy Joe Mann and those guys, they had their issues as a band,
Yep.
they're
Yep.
pretty well documented. That's no, secret. But man, those five albums, the first two, you can definitely hear like maturation and growth, but
Mhm.
then like those last three, and I love those first two albums,
Oh
Southern
yeah.
Wood, stuff
Yeah.
like that. They're you can see and hear the brilliance, but man, approaching light speed, feel the fire, little
Oh yeah.
foxes. I,
Yeah.
I mean, here they are, a Christian band that sings these songs that they're about the faith, but they use allegory. It's so artistic.
Yeah.
Nobody was doing it quite like them.
Mhm.
And musically, I don't think people give them credit for how progressive they were.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
mean, tell me, who does Barnabas sound like? Growing up, it was real popular to see these sounds like this, and White Cross sounds like this, and ACD, X Center sounds like that, and Barren Cross. Like nobody ever said like Barnabas sounds like anyone. Like that's amazing.
Hmm.
That is amazing that they put out those albums, and they didn't sound like anybody but themselves.
Right.
I I am so thrilled we got a chance to reissue those albums. It truly was a joy and a delight for us.
They sound, yeah, those Barnabas, and of course I just held them up. They sound wonderful. All the albums that I held up, and those Res albums, Matt, because to my knowledge, and these are early retroactive. See the
Yep,
old logo there.
those are the jewel case ones. We did a
And
thousand of those.
some of my favorite Res albums right here. And to my
Yeah.
knowledge, Matt, you have done the last remasters for these.
Yeah. Yeah.
And these just sound, look, all your remasters are wonderful.
I
And
think Cliffy did those. I think
yeah,
Cliffy
well,
did.
these are crisp. I mean, they are
Yeah.
they are wonderful. They've got
Oh yeah.
punch.
Oh yeah.
I've got the Jerusalem I held up. I held up the Barnabas. They all sound
Yep.
wonderful. I appreciate, and Rex and I, we appreciate the love and care that that you and your crew put into all of your releases. So
Well, we try to. Like these are treasure albums, so we try to treat them that way.
definitely, definitely,
It's nothing much more discouraging than to find your most treasured album and the record label treats it like it's an afterthought, like it's a menu that, when you walk into a restaurant and the menu's covered in like salsa and food that's been dropped on it. Sometimes you pick up these treasured albums and it's
yes.
like, oh man, it's just a little tiny wallet with nothing. And, you know,
So we were throwing out names, man. You were talking about Barnabas and Jerusalem and Bride and Rez, etc. Every name that you've already said that I just repeated, to me, that's rock royalty, if I may say it that way.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I know that you at Boone's Retroactive, I know that you treat those artists with reverence.
Absolutely.
And it shows, it reflects in what you release to us, the consumer. And I know Rex and I are very grateful for that because,
Thank you.
when you have artists that are to be revered for what they've done, it reflects in the work. And so we appreciate that. Matt, I'd like to ask you because I'm intrigued. We have so much in common. You love great music, that's evident.
Yeah.
And you also have a relationship with the Lord Jesus, Jesus the Christ. And Matt,
Yeah.
I'd like to ask, when did your relationship with Christ begin?
Well, honestly, like growing up, I heard, this was sort of a pivotal question that our church asked all the time. But, um, I basically, my parents were Christians. I grew up in the church. So, I mean, I don't know. I guess the day I was born, pretty much, and I was receptive to it. Both of my parents were Christians. They served in the church. They took us to church a lot of times on Sunday morning and on Sunday night. And then, I was involved in church on Wednesday night, Bible quiz, Royal Rangers, things like that. And I- you know, then the pastors acknowledged early on, hey, we see gifts for ministry in you. So they encouraged me at age 12 to consider ministry, which I did and ended up going to seminary and stuff. So, I never really, Jesus is the real deal. And there was no reason, even when my faith in life wavered, even when I went through periods where I wanted to put the church in a slingshot and get rid of it as far away from me as possible. I
Sure.
never had a problem with Jesus.
Right.
And, you know, so I always stuck it out with Jesus, even poorly during times of my life. But
Sure.
sometimes that's the best you can do is do it poorly. But I just kept trying to put one foot in front of the other. And at some point, you heal, you mature, you find resurrection in places that you knew you couldn't do on your own. And it was just God's grace that descended on you. And there is nothing more powerful than unconditional love, and that is the hardest thing for Christians to believe.
Mhm.
They say it with their words, and I keep myself in that we say it with our words, but it's very difficult to accept. We super we super want to say it, but then we want to earn it, and we want to tell others how they have to be in order to get it, and but the reality is the God's always going to be the father in the prodigal son. When the prodigal son came home and he steps out and he opens his arms from a distance,
Mhm.
and you know what he didn't do? He didn't point a finger. He didn't say, I told you it was a bad idea to go away.
Yeah.
All he did was he just said, I love you.
Mhm.
Go kill the fatted calf and
Mhm.
celebrate. And that is such a amazing thing. And that is absolutely what we need in our lives. So Jesus has been that for me through ups and downs, and I've had plenty of the downs. I really have. But I've stuck with Jesus to the chagrin of many Christians because I don't necessarily believe the way they do. So
Well, yeah, but that's the thing. It's somebody once said, sometimes Rex and I, we get asked, well, what about so and so, or what about so and so, or whatever. And I'm like, they say that they claim, they say that Christ is in their heart and Christ is in my heart, and that makes us brothers in Christ. And
absolutely.
let's don't concentrate on the molehills. The fact is, I'm putting my faith and confidence
No.
in whom Jesus the Christ is, as is you, Matt, and as is our other brothers out
Yeah.
there. And God's not going to ask me, "Hey, Kent, were you ever a Baptist or a
Yeah.
Methodist or
No.
right?"
No.
Did you sprinkle or did you get immersed?
Or was there a merge? Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Nothing but the blood of Jesus. Jesus
Yeah,
saves. No,
yeah.
so I get you, buddy. I get you.
Same old sinner, same old sinner, wearing a chain, loving the same old sinner, reaching out to the burning flame. It's only a summer slither,
Matt, what initially drew you to music and to starting up, forgive me if I'm terming this wrong, a Christian music distribution business?
Yeah, well, it really came down to this. I was stuck in Iowa growing up, Southeast Iowa. There was no internet. I didn't even know what the internet was. It probably didn't even exist in the mid 80s. And all of a sudden, this kid that I went to Christian school with, Chris Smith, his parents actually had money. They actually would drive out of town and see, living in little Burlington, Iowa, the Christian bookstores there, the rockiest stuff they had was like Michael W. Smith and his first two albums. If they are not rocky at all, they are great, but they're not rocky, you know.
Amu.
And yeah, exactly. And well, Big Picture is pretty rocky.
Yeah.
I mean, I love that one. But anyway, there wasn't too much to choose from. But Chris Smith, his parents would go out of town, and he'd come back with these cassettes like Daniel Band on Rock, Daniel Band Run from the Darkness, Joe English Band What You Need, Rick Kua, You're My Road. These were like critical to me. David and the Giants, Under Control, and Magnificat, which is a astounding album. Magnificat is so stinking good. And I'd be like, oh my gosh, I love that. And then he didn't really love metal too much, but he did bring me Blood Goods. No, he did not bring me Blood Good. I found that in a disc jockey. Um, and I mean, what else did he just brought me some stuff, and I was like, I just fell in love with it. And the church I went to said, you shouldn't listen to mainstream stuff. So I really embraced the Christian stuff because I thought that's what it meant to be a good Christian. And so, I started to really get into that. It's just, I remember at 12, my Christian bookstore had an extra copy of CCM magazine with Whiteheart on the cover. I consumed it like it was the way to feed my soul. It was like I needed an IV. The fact that it only came out once a month killed me. And then in the little classifieds, I found out about Heaven's Metal and White Throne, and I sent in my money and subscribed. And it killed me that it came out like 4 or 5 times a year. It was like it was like I was literally starving to death in between issues. And every week it'd be like, will it be delivered today? Will it be delivered today? I would watch I paid attention to the mail like every day was going to be Christmas. I just loved it. I'll be honest. I was obsessed with Christian rock and metal. And it was terrible that like there was like 12 metal releases in an entire year back worldwide.
I'm happy to hear Matt say this, Rex, because now
It
he
sounds just
knows.
like me growing up. I mean, this is like carbon copy because I'm like you, Matt. I was waiting for my Heaven's
Yeah.
Metal, magazine, and I just would scour that thing. But I'm
How many
sorry,
times
Jen.
would you read an average issue of Heaven's Metal?
Oh, 10, I bet you at
Ah,
least.
yeah.
At least.
Every
At least.
word, multiple times, as many times as possible. It never got old, did it? Oh,
Rex is frozen up. So,
uh-oh.
the thing is, Matt, is of course I had to wait until I didn't even know Heaven's Metal existed until I got to college and my buddy had it in college. And I'm like, what is this? And then I'm on, I completely get what y'all are saying. Rex, what I was going to say though, hearing Matt talk about waiting anxiously for that Heaven's Metal to get in, now he knows how we feel as consumers of Boone's Overstock, waiting for that order. It's like, and great delivery, by the way, prompt shipping. But I'm just saying, you get something in, we're talking about Believer. You know,
Right.
come on, you know. So anyway.
Hey, well, I got a question for you guys. So I put out most of this, I put out tons of these releases. And in my mind, like if you liked buying this album when it first came out,
Mhm.
like I would personally be super stoked to buy it again as a reissue.
Mhm.
Is that the way you guys feel too? Like
Well,
I know you've already bought it maybe 4 times before, but is it as exciting every time?
yes, and I'm gonna say why, because like I think we talked about this off camera, maybe Matt, but like the booklets in that originally, or maybe even the second time around, were very sparse and just like the record labels didn't really care about that. And most of the time now, your booklets, they come out 8, 10, 12, 16,
We normally do 12 to
pages.
16 page
So,
books.
and yes, and the remastering is normally, better, at least noticeable or whatever. And so, yeah, any band that we love like that, yeah, I don't have a problem buying it again if I know, like you said, you guys spend love and time on it, and you can tell that with these releases.
We tried. Do you know when we did that Blood Good self-titled reissue, which I love, that's my favorite Blood Good. I
Yep.
was so glad Scott Waters and I got out our original, I think it was on Alarma or Frontline,
Yeah.
maybe both. I think there might have been two pressings. The lyrics were on a quarter, I think it was a quarter or a half page. All the lyrics, just a quarter or a half of one single panel, all the songs. Like you couldn't read them if it depended on your life. It was insane.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So,
feel the same way,
yeah.
Matt, that Rex does, and I want to say, I brought some select releases here, and every band that you've mentioned so far, pretty much I've had. But I want to say, I mean, look, I don't know if I need to get into all this. I've already thrown so much up, but what I appreciate about you now, look, I appreciate you, Matt, at Boone's, and I appreciate Greg at Girder. I appreciate Bill at Rocks. And for some of the same things, but also for different things. And one of the things that I appreciate about you is, Matt, you kind of seem, for instance, your campaign that you're doing with Adam again, and with the alter ego of Daniel Amos,
Oh
the
yeah,
Swirling
Swirling
Eddies.
Eddies.
Uh-huh.
By the way, Zoom Daddy by Swirling Eddies. Somebody could easily make an argument that it's the greatest rock album ever. It is. Words can't even explain how good that album is.
Oh yeah, yeah. So in Scattered Few, so I'm throwing them up because something that I appreciate about you, Matt, in particular, that I feel everybody's got a little something special.
Yeah,
Um, and you, Matt, I think are willing to delve in a little deeper regarding some alternative releases.
yeah. I'm
Some of the artists
trying.
that I just
Um,
mentioned, and then here we go. And then another thing that I appreciate, and friends out there to our viewers, this is something that I really appreciate about Matt is he takes kind of a risk because see, I'm a person, Matt. We grew up loving a lot of the same stuff, but I'm also interested in the history of Christian rock, for lack of a better term, what we call
yeah,
Christian
yeah,
rock and Christian
sure,
metal.
sure.
And had it not been for you, I would not have known about the Bill Mason band, and
Oh.
I'm a fan of the Ramones music. And
It was a UK only release
yes,
in the 70s. Like we you honestly, I was surprised as heck. I was in Champaign, Illinois a few years ago, found a vinyl copy in the wild for $25.
yeah.
And I already had it, but I'm like, I'm not leaving it here. I got it anyway. So,
Friends out there, I don't want to disappoint you, and I'm strictly speaking musically along the mainstream, but friends, I love classic early Black Sabbath.
oh,
I love this band
that has some good stuff on there, man.
that Matt put out, and it's
Yeah,
sludgy, doomy-ish,
it
heavy.
is. It is.
I love a little bit more recent, but Matt, with Valor,
Oh,
Masquerade.
Yeah,
Great stuff.
you know what? I was in St. Louis at some point, and I walked into a Christian bookstore, and they had that demo cassette sitting in their budget bin. I don't even know how they got it.
Yeah.
I grabbed it. I had already ordered the original demo straight from them.
Mhm.
And I think that was the original demo. Then later there was a different version of it that
Right.
came. And I fell in love with that. And I
Yeah.
was super pumped to be able to reissue that album.
Yeah. Great speed metal there. And then, if I'm saying it right, but Amaziah,
Yeah.
early Christian metal, hard rock,
Yeah.
and then Sunlight, the fuzz tone stuff. Andre Crouch's backup band, but
It has some psychedelic stuff on there, man.
yeah, the fuzz rock psychedelic stuff, and that's what I'm saying, Matt. So we'll get into some of your imprints, but all
Yeah.
of these, except for the Valor, were born twice,
Yeah.
and that's what I appreciate about you, especially, is that you take some chances, but see, it lets me find out about other bands, and I've been around a while.
Yeah.
And I'm learning about bands that, historically speaking, these bands came before a lot of what
I
came
know.
out in the 80s.
And even though most people don't know it, they really did help pave the way
Yes, yes, they did.
for future artists. Like, I hate to say it, people might disagree with me, but like Mike Johnson, who was in the Excursions, his solo stuff, Randy Matthews, Larry Norman, without them, you don't get Amy Grant.
Right.
You don't get Michael W. Smith, stuff like that. These were important artists who took a lot of grief from the church, a lot of criticism, and they went out there and they loved on people and they shared the good news of God's love. And I think somebody ought to lift them up and say, hey, this album matters. These people matter.
And it's great because I'm finding out more about the history that I love, musically speaking. It's got the good news of Christ in there, and it's music that I love, and it reaches a little further back. And like you said, Matt, I think it's important.
Once again with that spiritual fitness, I'm always down for the drive-by witness. I roll up real slow, then I fire. I hit a gangbanger and a backslider. The both of them are like singing in the choir on fire. I am then, like I told you on the last cut. Two more brothers are transformed, so what up? I hear a beat like this.
Speaking about going a little further back, let's talk about this. Some of your former ventures prior to Retroactive Records or Boone's Overstock. Now, Matt, I have purchased stuff from you. I remember Magdalene Records
Oh, yeah.
back in the day and even before then. And I know this because I purchased from you, it was the Atomic Opera VHS Fever Dream
Yeah.
and Penguin Dust CD.
Yeah.
You were Rugged Cross Connections at one time.
I was.
Tell us about those ventures. I think Rugged Cross was
So,
first.
part of the reason I got into dealing music was because I was poor. I just didn't have a lot of money, and I was always a hard worker. Like even as a young boy, my parents, for a few years, we lived in a trailer court. I was like, I don't know, I must have been, what grade was I in? I must have been in fourth grade. I just grabbed the lawnmower. I started walking around the trailer court, knocked on people's door. You want your lawn mowed? I didn't even know to negotiate. I just mowed the lawn and took whatever money they gave me, and I also love baseball cards, so I did want to buy some of those too. But later, as I got older, I just fell in love with this music. And I told you, like I was passionate, deeply passionate. I wanted it all, and so I just didn't have the funds to do it. And so when I went to school at Western Illinois University in Macomb, Illinois, and I met a guy there named Tony Seward. Some might remember A to Z Media, I think is what he called his, or not media, A to Z Music, I think is what it was. He would be at festivals and stuff. Tony accumulated tens of thousands of product. And what he would do is he would go to Christian bookstores, he would go to Camelots. Remember Camelots? He'd go to discount places and he'd either trade in music or he'd buy music at closeout prices. And he taught me how to work it so that you could grow your inventory. And so by the time I got to seminary, in the early 90s, I was like, man, I think 93 I went there, and I'm like, I'd been seeing all these classified ads for like, hey, send a self-addressed stamped envelope if you want to, and you get a list of like all these rare Christian rock records. I'd never even heard of them. Didn't even know they existed, but they'd have like little blurbs or write-ups. And then Delaney's, Rad Rockers catalog, I learned a lot from them. And so in 93, I went to seminary, and I had an upstairs where there was quite a bit of space, and I had room to put my extra cassettes and vinyl and CDs. And then I started doing imports. Oddly enough, it's ridiculous, but I was able to get a lot of Swedish imports in because the mother of my children, her dad was best friends with a guy that had been an exchange student from Sweden, who was friends with a guy in Sweden that did a Christian music CD club, like basically their version of BMG Club or Columbia House. And so we started this through the mail relationship. And so he couldn't get me everything, but I would start to get some imports in, and I would send him stuff. So I started Rugged Cross Connections in seminary, and I started sending out these mailings, and people would send in their money, and I did it because I just needed a way to support my habit. It wasn't to provide music for people. That was just a benefit of it. But, I didn't have any money to buy anything. I didn't have a lot of earning power. I'm going to school, working a job for the church at with a parsonage. And that's how it started, So I started Rugged Cross Connections. I did that for a number of years until I met up with, and this is sort of going into another question I know you wanted to touch on, but I met up with Brad Hamilton at M8 Distribution, who also ran Millennium 8. So it was M8 Distribution, Millennium 8 Records. And funny, this is a ridiculous story. I get a phone call from Brad Hamilton, didn't know who he was. He's like, yeah, this is Brad Hamilton. I'm going to start a distribution company called M8 Distribution. And I was at Cornerstone Festival, and I was eating a turkey leg. They had those giant turkey legs. And he goes, I threw it in this big barrel trash can. I noticed a Rugged Cross Connection list in there, and I picked it up, and it had your phone number on there. So I wanted to know, do you want to work together? And I'm like, maybe. So I ended up starting Magdalene Records, which Charisma Rock the World was my first release. Had no idea what I was doing. It came out amazing for a first release. To this day, I'm like, that thing should have like 1 billion problems with it. I don't. I love that release. Like, it's pretty professional looking and sounding for sure. Then I did the Philadelphia reissues after that. I was really proud of how those came out. They're a little cramped, but hey, for my early releases, I think they're pretty good. And Brad started doing distribution for me, and then I wanted to do stuff. I loved King's X, so I started Massive Groove Productions and worked with Atomic Opera. Tried to do Mustard Seeds. That didn't work out like I hoped. I love the Mustard Seeds album, that self-titled Mustard Seeds. Ooh, it's so good, so good. But that's how I got into the record label business, because I thought by that time I was out of seminary, and I really didn't think I had time to do direct sales for my company. And I thought, hey, it's easier for me. At the time, there were more distributors, or there were more retailers out there. And I thought, rather than shipping 50 different orders out to 50 different customers, I could just take a box of 50 CDs and mail them to Mike Delaney at Rad Rockers, and I make less money per unit, but I can make it up in volume theoretically. So that's how I did it. And then I've had different distribution deals over time, but Yeah, the thing with M8 didn't exactly end well. That's a whole other story.
I was always a little confused, Matt, and just because, my mind was all everything was so wonderful and new back then. It's still wonderful
Oh
today,
yeah,
but we didn't have we weren't doing this back then, right?
right.
It was all by catalog and word of
Mhm.
mouth, and so I was always a little confused. It might have just had to do with the letter M, but I was always seeing on M8 distribution either Magdalene Records or Millennium 8, and I thought you guys were
Mm.
all one and the same.
It really looked that way, and I would occasionally do pushback. Like I hated, I super hated the releases that had the gold border around it, and they weren't gold discs. And I was like, yeah, I'm like, you're not gonna put that on mine, because he kind of like helped and do some, he sort of had some say into what my releases look like. And I remember Brad's words. He goes, if I'm going to distribute it, then it's going to have the gold border on it. And I didn't like it. I just didn't like the gold border. And I do love the gold borders on mine, but we also, you can flip it around so there's no gold border on the ones and plus I just think mine's better. I think our gold borders are way better. I think the ones that are on the M8 releases look terrible, to
Well,
be quite honest.
yeah, I mean
And-
these look these look snazzy. Jeremy Brown, and I love Jeremy. He's my brother at Torrential Riff, and I like to dig at him a little bit. He's not a gold border guy, but these are done right, and you do have the flip on them, like you said. But the quality, Matt, over the years, that's another thing. You asked
Mhm.
earlier if we're inclined to repurchase. The answer is yes, because the mastering process gets better, the artwork gets better. You got a great crew through Rob and
Yeah,
Scott, of
man.
course.
Super lucky to have Rob as the mastering guy. Scott is, I couldn't do it. I just literally couldn't do it without those two guys. It would be impossible. And then we have copy editors now.
Yep. John De
John De
Laurentiis.
Laurentiis is unbelievable.
Yeah.
He is such a tremendous asset. Craig Phillips helps out. Like we super depend on them for proofing. I mean, it's unbelievable. I have to live with mistakes forever. They
Well, that's
don't
the thing.
go away.
We learn as we go. And look,
Yeah.
I was happy. You were literally, Matt. I mean, it was an answer to prayer when I could see a re-release on Magdalene Records back in the day. Because that was kind of the first wave of re-releases, and prior to then, it was almost like from the Old Testament to the New Testament. There's that dead space in there.
There
And
was.
will
Yeah.
I ever?
Yep.
Because look, my all of my Daniel Band tapes, my cassette tapes were chewed up. That felt pad
Yeah.
was gone.
Oh
And it
yeah.
wasn't until 93 there was a little label called Pulse that put out Best of Daniel Band, and it was like a single
Yeah.
page insert.
Terrible.
But it was a
Terrible.
CD, and it was
Better than nothing though, right?
yeah. And then here you come with your stuff, and everything's a growing process, and you all did the best that you could, and it was good. And today it's great. And so I'm
Thank you.
thankful. Matt, let's discuss then. Under the Boone's Overstock banner,
Sure.
you've got Retroactive Records. You've got another avenue, Bombworks Records. You have Brutal Planet Records and Born Twice.
Right.
And so, Matt, each of your label specialties there housed under the Boone's Overstock banner. Would you mind taking us through those four different labels and what they produce under those venues, those avenues?
Yeah. Well, we don't, I would say that Born Twice has been pretty inactive just because it's sort of an overlap with Retroactive Records. Like you could just do all the stuff on Retroactive and it would fit okay. But also like the more obscure Jesus music, there just isn't enough demand for it. And the other thing is like I put those out like in 2010, where I was under the impression that I could sell 1,000 units of anything, because I was so excited for these releases to come out. I couldn't imagine that we wouldn't just sell 1,000 units in a year, but I was wrong. So, if I had only pressed up 500 or 300, it would have been a different story. It'd been like, wow, it sold really well, but because I pressed up 1,000 units, then I'm just sitting on like hundreds of copies for years. So I've just been discouraged about, I did tip my foot back into it with the Giant Killer release, the Valley of Decision. No, or Whose Side You On is what it's called in the one we did, same album, but I only did 300 of those.
Right.
And guess what? That's the right number, because familiarity breeds contempt. If you're sitting on hundreds of copies and you sell 2 every month or every year, then it's like you get discouraged with it. But Watergrave, or not Watergrave, Born Twice, it just focused on that early Jesus music stuff. Retroactive is more of a general label, but more for rock and classic metal. And then Bombworks is what we focus on, extreme metal for Christian stuff. Retroactive, mostly Christian stuff, but like we did a Johnny Lee Looking for Love album. That's not a Christian album. If you look real hard, Tank Go Down has an album in which there's a Retroactive logo buried on it somewhere.
In mass.
Yeah,
Great,
yeah.
great re-release.
So Retroactive is mostly Christian stuff. That's what our brand really is. But there is some variation on what you'll find on Retroactive. And then Brutal Planet, it really came out of a couple things. First off, I said earlier, back when we were kids, you were lucky to get 12 Christian metal releases in an entire calendar year. Am I exaggerating? I mean it.
No,
Am I
no.
exaggerating? No.
No.
I mean, heck, when Shadow Wings came out, we're excited, Shadow Wings, not exactly going to blow you away with their technical expertise, right? Maybe their charm, but anyway, well, things changed dramatically by the time 2018, 2019, 2020 come around, and you've got Greg, you got from Girder, you got Rocks, and Bill Bafford, and you got me, and we're probably putting 12 releases out a month combined, and hardworking people that are part of the Christian family are like, you're killing me. You're killing me, and we're putting out high quality product. We're trying to get more per unit because, it's just the way the world works. Things cost more, you risk more. You can't just, as prices of everything go up, you can't keep charging less and less on everything. And so like all of a sudden, instead of 12 releases a year, you're coming up with 30 new reissues a month, and people are like, you're killing my checkbook. So, put bluntly, it's like, I need some new pockets. And so one of the biggest things I could do was look at what my options were. And I have relationships with I've worked hard to build relationship with some mainstream labels, and it's been a very good partnership. I love the people that I work with, that I license from. I love those labels. It's been a joy and a delight, and we are supportive of each other. And so Brutal Planet Records came out of like, hey, we need to stop targeting everything to the Christian music crowd, and we need to start providing some of this special stuff that we do. Other people outside of Christian music also feel the same way we feel about our Christian music. They feel about Nevermore. They feel about In This Moment. They feel about Coroner and Sacrifice and Lazarus AD, Stuck Mojo, stuff like that. So, I just said, hey, we're really good with Rob and Scott. We have a team that can put out super quality music. And I think, maybe we can brand a niche that will make a difference in people's lives that way too. So that's how Brutal Planet Records came about.
Gotcha. Now, Matt, so Boone's Overstock, the flagship banner, if you will, I think that you once told me that you were related to Daniel Boone. Is this correct?
It is true. I grew up, my dad had an Uncle Boone. He was my great Uncle Boone. Um, my parents gave me the middle name Boone, and I gave my son Wesley the middle name Boone. And so, the story goes, I don't know, have a lot of details, but the story is that Daniel Boone, the frontiersman, married a woman that was our relative, and so then they had children, and therefore we're part of the family tree of Daniel Boone. I actually had a young kid was like, I've never heard of Daniel Boone the other day,
Oh,
so I don't know how relevant it is anymore.
oh, I thought it was cool when you told me that. Now, Matt, I've always been curious about this.
Sure.
Determining factors for when an album, for when you deem that an album could use a re-release or a remaster. What are some of the determining factors that you go, I think this title by this band could use a remaster re-release?
That's a great question. It really is. It is so complicated. I wish I could give you an easy answer. So I'm going to give you a meander around
Okay.
answer. Sometimes it's because, and I try to keep this to a minimum. I swear to God, I try, but sometimes it's just a personal thing that I'm like, I don't care. I'm putting it out anyway. Like, I love the Mainline Riders World Shaker album, and I love Cliffy, who's behind the album, and Sean from Grave Robber.
John
Love him.
Browning,
He
yep.
does vocals on it. I
Yep.
love that album
It's a
so
great.
much. And it'd been out of print, and I'm just like, Cliffy, I want to put out a reissue. And Cliffy's like, yeah, whatever. Go ahead. You go ahead and do it. And I'm like, hey, I want to do vinyl too. Okay, no worries. He didn't even I don't think he even charged me. I paid him for the CD and CD or vinyl. I think I just sent him some units. And because we knew it wasn't going to sell that well. So, and it didn't. That's why I'm selling them for $12 on the sale right now on vinyl, and $5 CDs, because but it's an amazing album,
Mhm.
and I love it so much. And I was like, I want to hear this album breathe on vinyl. I love the sound of vinyl so much. It's so more dynamic,
Mhm.
and it's a different listening experience, and I wanted to hear that album on vinyl so bad. The one I've been trying to talk myself into, even contacted the band. I love the band Tormund Maxed and Tony Massaro, and I especially love their first album, Just Talking About the Universe. It's a progressive rock, hard rock masterpiece. And Martin does lead vocals on it, and I just love it so much. And I super want to do it, but I'm just afraid financially it would be a horrible, horrible business decision. So sometimes it's just like self-indulgent, when I do stuff. I'm sure you figure out those, like, oh, you think this one will really sell? And I'd probably be like, probably not, but we're gonna try our best anyway. And then the other thing you look at is Spotify listeners. If it's a mainstream band, you look to see how much of a present, how many fans do they actually have. A band like In This Moment has a ton of fans, and so um, if you've put it out something out before, that also makes a difference. A band like Stuck Mojo, the Rich Ward from Stuck Mojo totally got behind me and pushed releases, and it makes a huge difference. If a band is hard to work with, if they are critical, if they won't do anything to let fans know, I'm less likely to put that out, because it's hard enough to sell. And a lot of times fans want to know that their bands are involved. And so that's why a lot of times, even if we can just get the smallest of a blurb, it allows fans, oh yeah, they're aware of this. The last thing we want to do is put something out and have the band members find out the same time the fans do, or even after the fact. That doesn't usually go too well, which makes it hard, because a lot of times we're licensing from a record label, and they don't even have, I can't even tell you, it's a rare thing if they have contact information.
Mhm.
for the band. So trying to find people is very hard and time consuming. And when you got a billion things to do, messaging someone on Facebook that you're not friends with and hoping it gets through to them for the 30th time, it just isn't high on the priority list. So,
Right.
the other thing is just, has it been done before? Has it been on vinyl before? How can we do this to make it different than previous reissues? Um, stuff like Deliverance Weapons of Our Warfare, no matter how many times I put it out, it just keeps selling.
Mhm.
That's an album that has like tremendous staying power.
Mhm.
So I'm always going to be doing Weapons of Our Warfare and probably the self-titled. So though, and sometimes it's just a guess you
Mhm.
know like we licensed Quiet Room uh from Metal Blade Records. They had an album called, I think it was Introspect, maybe. It's a progressive rock, and it was sort of promoted in Heaven's Metal as sort of a quasi Christian release back in the day. And I don't know, I have no idea if it's going to sell or not. It was just a guess. I take a lot of risks. I do.
It reminds me, Matt, of, and I appreciate the risk that you do take. And friends out there, if you're not familiar with Mainline Riders, the World Shaker album, if you love classic
Oh,
AC/DC with
yeah.
that Bon Scott sound like I
Oh
do,
my gosh.
that's the album you need right there.
Yep.
It's more AC/DC than, forgive me from saying this, the Next Center is. You know,
Yeah. Yeah,
it's
I
great.
just remember my conversations with Cliffy. He really wanted to keep in mind, Cliffy doesn't try to be a rock star. Cliffy is a
Mhm.
rock star. Even if he is never in a band, he is a rock star. I'll never forget the first time I ever saw. Am I taking too long here, by the way?
Ooh, your time, buddy.
Okay. I remember the first time I ever saw Cliffy in person. He had done some mastering for me. We had actually developed a closeness, like a
Mhm.
kinship as brothers. And all of a sudden, like, I've been working a lot with Bill Mentioned, put out some good releases, and I've been paying him to hire Robert Sweet to play drums on a number of the releases. And so finally, he's doing the Final Acts of the Apostles album. Great album, by the way. Like, I don't know how to pick out of the two Final Acts albums which one's my favorite, but they're both unbelievable. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm in Iowa. Bill's in Vegas with Robert Sweet. I'm paying Robert to record these drums. What's stopping me from going down there and meeting Robert Sweet?
Yeah.
And so Cliffy was doing a lot of mastering for me. So I think, I don't know if I think I paid for his way, just as sort of like, hey, thanks so much. I think I paid for his plane ticket. I could be wrong on that, but it sounds like something I would do probably. And then Rob Caldwell was also a close friend. And I was like, hey, fellas, you want to go meet Robert Sweet and hang out with Bill Mention? And they're like, heck yeah, we do. So uh, we all flew in, and I don't remember how I saw Rob there. And I'd met Rob lots of times in person at Cornerstone Festival, but I'd never met Cliffy. And this was pre like Facebook and social media. I think there was MySpace maybe back then, but I
Yeah.
didn't do anything with
MySpace. Yeah.
that. I didn't really do MySpace. And I remember I had no idea what Cliffy actually looked like. But so I'm just in this airport and there's people everywhere, everywhere in Vegas. And as soon as he walked out,
That's Cliffy.
that's Cliffy. And
Very.
I was like, I admire you so much. You don't try to be a rock star. Everything in your DNA is a rock star. And so, anything musically that Cliffy's part of, like, count me in.
Yeah.
I just love his stuff.
And Cliffy, if you ever come across this, Cliffy, you were great at taking it from the originals that up to the next level
Yeah.
with that first wave of remastering. You were the man.
Yeah.
Cliffy, awesome.
And I remember, like, so he really wanted Mainline Riders to be like his new thing because Huntingtons were kind of on the way out back then.
Yep.
And he really wanted Mainline to sort of be his thing. And so he put out the first album. I think it was already recorded. And then I came in and I was like, that's really good. And he's like, yeah, it sounds just like Hanoi Rocks, because he's a huge Hanoi Rocks fan. And I was like, yeah, it's really good. It sold okay. Like, people didn't gravitate. I think it's a brilliant album. I love that first album so much. But I was like, I knew how well X Center sold, and I knew how well AC/DC type stuff sold. And I knew people just really wanted like that kind of a sound. So I'm like, Cliffy, this next album, you need to make it sound like AC/DC. And so we actually strategized and worked hard. And I think they recorded that whole album at Tim Bouchong's studio. He did a brilliant job on it. Tim did. And it does. It sounds like AC/DC. It was a perfect result of what we wanted as a label. It's the only time I've really been involved in any way with like what an album would sound like.
Yeah. Well, you did good, Matt. It's a great album.
I'm a running man, hiding in the streets, but I've got no plan, no promise.
Something Rex and I were talking about, and it kind of applies here, and it's just the way it is. I kind of hate to say it, but Rex and I are doing interviews, and we love the artists that we grew up with, and they're a little more pronounced, a little more popular or whatever. But that we also want to have artists on to introduce people to when we hear their stuff, and it's like worth hearing. And I'm thankful. Rex and I are thankful for every viewer who watches a newer, lesser known artist. But it's so funny because I think more people are, instead of, hey, here's a new artist we ought to check out, they're like, they're just going to gravitate to the familiar names, the familiar.
Yeah, that's the tough thing. Like,
Yeah.
a new thrash band, it's sort of like white noise. Because,
Right.
and if you
Yeah.
have a sea of options, what are you going to go to? You're going to go to Believer.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to go to Vengeance. You know, if you're in the mainstream, you're going to go to Slayer, Testament, Anthrax. And I mean, I'm just sorry, but that's what most people are going to do. And if you can be a new band that can break through that, then I applaud. I really do.
I think
really-
it's just human nature, like you say, Matt. You just go with what's familiar and what you know, and
Yeah.
it just seems like people are kind of uninterested or unwilling to try something new, even though they might like it if they would just give it a chance.
Yeah, and I think it really comes back to, I'm not really I don't really do music sales. I do nostalgia sales.
Yeah.
I am marketing nostalgia.
Yep.
And
You are.
that's just reality. We love our nostalgia, and I'm including me in that.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too. Matt, let me ask you. I've often wondered a couple other questions here. What determines the format in which an album is remastered in? For instance, a CD. Now, I love albums, and I do have a healthy vinyl collection, but I find CDs, I gravitate more towards them for convenience sake for various reasons. But in the CD realm, then, we have Digipack versus Jewel Case, meaning standard, versus Gold Disc Edition.
Mhm.
I have them right here. I could pull out. In fact, let me just do this right here really quick. We've got your wonderful re-release, remaster of
Yeah, they're pretty good. Pretty
and
happy
then
with
we
them.
have the follow-up, and it's Gold Disc.
Yep.
Both are great. What determines a Digipack versus standard jewel case versus Gold Disc?
Great question. Great question. And actually you gave me a really good one, like a tangible example to comment on. So I appreciate that, because I could answer it in general, but I appreciate like a specific example. Rebellion and Wicked Generation and Obsessions had never had like a, what I would call a proper reissue. I think KMG did some reissues, but
Yeah.
most collectors don't look at the KMG stuff and they're like, thank you for making it available, because it wouldn't be available at all. But like, it's like nobody's holding that up going, I'm so grateful for the quality of this 2-panel insert that has no lyrics, but they did actually make the music available, so it was
Yes.
better than nothing,
Right.
right? But I knew that ours were going to be the first ones. We did those 3 albums first, right? We did not do Master's Command because at the time Rocks had done 1 or 2 versions. I can't remember. I think maybe 2 versions,
Mhm.
but the first one, I mean, one of those that he put out was definitely a digipack of Master's Command.
Yes. Yeah.
And so we did the 3 he hadn't done because he had done Master's Command. And so we did those as jewel cases. We almost always do jewel cases because back in 2010, 11, I was under the impression that that digipacks were sort of like these extra deluxe, cool.
Yeah.
And then after getting browbeat mercilessly by fans, and also they explained themselves, and I did understand why. I had taken my mainline riders CD and accidentally set it next to me on the computer, right in the condensation of where my glass of water had been sitting. And so I'd had my digipack sit in my passenger side seat of my car, had the window down, and the rain came in and damaged. I began to understand, but more importantly, I listened to what they had to say, that
Yeah.
real collectors don't normally want digipacks. Now, a couple of things back, like a good so with Master's Command, since
Mhm.
it had already been reissued before, I wanted to do something with it to make it even more special.
Mhm.
And so gold discs were kind of this thing that we were really pushing hard.
Mhm.
And so I'm like, well, it makes it a different packaging. It's a jewel case. It's gold. We can really uplift this as sort of like something special. And it is.
Mhm.
It is a very special package. So I needed to give people a reason and an incentive to want to buy it again and to feel like they were getting something really special for a really cool album. That's why we did that. Now with the digipack, after I learned that collectors don't normally want digipacks, especially metal. Sometimes you can get away with it, like with alternative music. They don't seem to care. In metalcore, they don't seem to care. We put out an album by My Ruin, which was a 2010s band ish
Mhm.
band, 2000, late 2000s, 2000. They literally wanted a digipack. Well, okay, if the artist wants a digipack, we'll do
Sure.
one. But I
Yeah.
knew that for classic rock and metal, that's not what people want. And so, like, we did toy around with it. We wanted to put pressure on people to buy the jewel case version.
Mhm.
So, like with Siloam's Sweet Destiny,
Mhm.
brilliant album, by the way. If you like stuff like Winger and
Yeah.
like that really good AOR, like you can't go wrong with Sweet Destiny by
Oh yeah.
Shalom.
Yeah.
It's flawless. It's such ear candy. But we did do a gold disc for that, and we only pressed up 500, sold through those. And what we did was we promoted first pressing is jewel case release. So buy it now because the next pressing is going to be a digipack. And
Mhm.
so we did do a wallet of that, and it sells fine. I'm not complaining. It does sell fine. Plus, you can sell digis a little cheaper,
Yeah.
and so it puts it in more people's price category. But in general, number one, there aren't too many albums in the Christian music scene that you can get by with 2 pressings. Like there are some, but not too many. And we just learned that in general, people don't like digipacks. And then if you put out another version of it, it's like launching a new release, but it's already been out. And
Mhm.
so you don't get like that rush of new sales and stuff. So it's just a lot of work. And so I did that with Siloam, but then I'm like, I probably just not going to do digipacks anymore. No more wallets. We did it for Galactic Cowboys box set,
Mhm.
because I needed a box, and that's the only way we could fit them all in the box. So
Yeah.
that was like a practical thing. We just didn't have a box that would house 6 jewel cases or 5. I think it was 5. So that was a practical thing. And then like with the Strike-In box set,
Yep.
um, we didn't know we were going to do a box set, so we ended up doing one as a jewel, as a gold disc, and then the others I was just concerned on how well it would sell, so I just did it as a digi. And I'm like, they've never been out before, they're going to buy it because they can't buy it anywhere else in any other format, because those other albums are great. People don't understand how great those unreleased strike albums
Blitzkrieg
are.
is
Yeah,
one of my favorite albums. I
I
love
know.
that.
It is so good. But I don't actually remember exactly how we decided those are going to be wallets, but again, I think it was the box size and we needed everything to fit. So I think that's what happened. But in general, I just try to stay away from wallets and stuff anymore.
Off the cuff question, Matt.
Yeah.
Now, I like gold discs,
Mhm.
and I like standard discs.
Yep.
Is just off the cuff question, is it possible to sometimes on the gold disc you lose some of that on the disc itself on the top, you lose some of that wonderful artwork? I mean, you get the premium gold disc,
Right.
but sometimes you get that fancy schmancy artwork on a standard. Is it
Yeah.
possible to print the fancy schmancy on top of a gold disc?
I think you can. I
I was
think you,
just wondering. I didn't
yeah.
know.
If you look at the Nevermores though,
Hmm.
the gold coming through. Like I took a picture of like those 6 Nevermore CDs, or maybe it was 3. It looked like 6 because I had them like open face.
Hmm.
And I took a picture and I sent it to Greg from Girder because we're super tight. And he's like, dude, you need to let fans see how cool those disc face look. And I did. And the Nevermore sell like crazy. I didn't even know Nevermore existed, really. I'd heard of them,
Yeah.
but like, man, they're really special. So, and we just honestly, I don't know if we'll ever do another gold disc again. They're pretty expensive to do. And we've kind of transitioned to the collector's edition that has the cardboard O-ring,
Hmm.
the giant booklets, and then the collector card in there as well. And those are really nice. I mean,
Yes.
those are I consider them super special, and I'm really pleased with how, and they are expensive too. I'm not gonna
Mhm.
pretend like they're just as expensive as gold disc, but I have to get my gold disc done at a different place than I normally use,
Yeah.
and it's annoying, and I don't like it. So I can just get my regular stuff done at the normal place that I use, and I don't have to coordinate like the disc being done at one place, mailed to the other place.
Yeah.
It's just too many moving parts.
Sure.
And I just, I don't know. I'm not saying we'll never do a gold disc, but I don't know. We'll see. We'll see.
Got you. Well, I've often wondered this then, Matt. How do you and then Greg from Girder and Bill from Rocks, how do you all ensure that you're not pursuing like a same campaign at the same time, like a remastering project?
That's a fantastic question. And normally, there is a professional courtesy. Like, for instance, I would never try to license the Vengeance stuff without, I would just shoot Baffert a text message. Hey, do you care if I license this? He's probably going to say no, because that's sort of been his baby. And for me, Bride, Deliverance, Saint, those are sort of my babies, that I've nurtured those relationships over the years. And, there's been some tense moments, like, to be quite honest, because, you know, one of them came as like, yeah, I licensed the first 3 Bride albums on, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I told him I was doing those, and he backed off, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So, and there's been other times. I'll tell you what happens though, is we don't always know until like it's too late. you know, like sometimes it's just totally random stuff. Like I worked out a deal with Grandma Train for the indie release,
Right.
and literally independent of me, like just as I had gotten the contract signed or right before, Greg's like, I'm gonna license Lonely House and Flying by Grandma Train. What? And I thought I was going to be able to launch, and then he launched them way before I could even get mine launched and stuff. So sometimes that happens. Sometimes, it takes years to figure this stuff out. Like I've literally been killing myself off and on trying to get a contact with the band Apostle, the Christian metal band that's on all those Christian metal samplers and has all those killer like classic metal demo tapes. I couldn't find Matt Harding's family for anything. And I tried for years and years and years. And I finally, with the help of Chris Gatto, thank you, Chris Gatto. We love you so much. He put me in touch. And we legitimately inked a deal and have the support of Matt Harding's son Jacob and stuff. So I'm so grateful. But it took 10 years. And sometimes those things like there was a release that came out, I'll throw out some names. There was a release that came out on Rocks. I'm not going to tell you which one it was, but Girder had been trying to nurture that thing for like 5 years. And it's, you get tired, you sort of let things go, and then you don't check in for a long time. And then Rocks came in, didn't even know about the thing. And then it comes out and you're like, oh man, I thought I was going to get to do that. And you know what? That happened with Striking and me. I'd been begging Striking to do a reissue. And that was like the Girder Records second, after the White Cross, that was their second one. I can't tell you how jealous I was. I'm like, I've been talking to those guys from Striking for like the last 10 years, and they would never pull the trigger with me. And then he hasn't even put anything out except White Cross, and then bam, it comes out. And he didn't know. He
Right.
didn't know. So sometimes there is an overlap there. I just say, hey, there's plenty of releases. Move on.
When your heart is like a stone and you need direction home, to me it's plain to see you're gonna be Miranda Bridge, Dr. Bones. Bullets, sticks, and stones. Don't mess with them wigs, Dr. Bones. Rather than sticks and stones.
So Matt, that leads me into this question I kind of been wondering about, and you can press the pass button, but I know there's probably some artists or albums that you guys would all like to do, but just seem to be so elusive. Do you feel comfortable in naming of any of those that you would love to have the chance to do, or is that a pass button question?
No, I mean, I don't mind.
Okay.
I mean,
I can think of one.
I try not to want to do Rage of Angels, because wherever the goalpost is, they move it back so far.
Yeah.
And then it takes about 5 years, and then I come back and I go, all right. And they're like, oh, really? Well, if you're willing to do that, we're going to move the goalpost back here. And then I'm like, well, screw you guys. I'm not doing that. And then I wait another 5 years and I'll be like, all right, I'll do it. And then they move the goalpost. Like that's literally happened like 4 or 5 times. I think 5 times total. I believe total over the last 20 years. That one. The other one I try not to want to do, and I do want to do all these, but First Strike, Rock of Offense album,
Yeah.
And I talked to Pat Boylan, and he's awesome, super fun to talk to, knowledgeable, intelligent. And we'll spend a few hours in conversation, and then I'll pitch an idea for a reissue, and he'll go back and talk to I think it's Tim. I think I'm it's been a while, so I don't know if I'm getting the names right. And then he'll come back, he's like, we're not interested. And that's happened at least 3 times. At least 3 times. So after a while you're like, man, I'm getting discouraged, and I don't want to waste any more time to do that.
And I think sometimes it's the licensing fees too from the labels. I know some stuff that hasn't been released. I think that's at the cost. It's just cost prohibitive.
Yeah, yeah, it's some of it's super expensive, so you want to be real careful about what you put out because that's why the rap stuff was so scary for me to put out because I didn't grow up listening to rap. I mean, I listened to Stephen Wiley and the Bible Break on cassette, and I listened to PID's, first album.
I love PID, man.
I
I love
know.
SFC. You did great with SFC and
Let me
Gospel
see your
Gangs.
fruit. Let me see your fruit.
Yeah, all I ever wanted was to see your fruit.
That's right.
I know.
But
I love PID.
that's as far as I could go, and but I'm like, you know what? We should I have multicultural stuff. I like being supportive of other scenes and I acknowledge that Christian rap
It's great.
there was a ministry there
Mhm.
that rock and roll was never going to touch.
Right.
And so I wanted to just dip my foot into that. And as I got older, I do appreciate the rap stuff, even though I don't listen to it a whole bunch. But I really appreciate it. I wanted to be supportive. And then Chris Cooper, Super C from SFC was unbelievably supportive. I can't say enough good things about him. And it really made a huge difference. So we'll probably be doing more of that stuff down the road.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So, kind of tailgating here with Rex regarding some releases, I'd like to ask Matt. I don't know if you can say much, but I'd like to whet the appetite of the Christian rock and metal enthusiast out there. So, in whetting some of our enthusiasts' appetite, can you drop any hints maybe of some great releases that might be looming on the horizon for Boone's Overstock?
Well, really want to drop one that is super in the discussion stages.
Okay.
Let's just say there's some classic albums from one of the greatest Christian rock guitarists ever, a metal guitarist. There may be some classic album
Are we talking White Cross?
No one's saying any names here. I'm just saying there's been some discussions from one of Christian metal's most prolific guitarists about some version of classic albums being reissued. I can't say any more than that.
Well, it makes me
Not
happy.
confirm nor deny anything that's been said here today on that.
Awesome.
The ones I'm most excited about, though, are those Apostle albums. I can't remember exactly. I think there's 6 or 7 of them. I think there's 7, actually. And to see these come out, I guess, Prepare to Meet God was already available on CD for a while, and then it got bootlegged in Greece forever. But to have these come out legitimately, I'm super, super excited for. They're sort of on the same pathway as like the Paradox releases, Texas Paradox, Ruler, Power and the Glory, the Wrath. There's just like this epic power metal, classic metal, and I expect Apostle to do. I expect them to do pretty well. They could surprise me. You never know how. Greg from Girder and I have a saying: the longer we're in this business, the less we know, because it's like almost impossible to really know what's going to sell and what doesn't. We got Rev 7. Back in the day, we put out Rev 7 as a CDR. I don't know why it's taken us like 2 years, but we finally got the Rev 7 stuff done. So we're going to do a small 300 unit pressing of those. I think we're going to do 2 separate releases. It might end up being on one. I can't remember. But Rev 7 is Bill mentioned from Titanic and Final Acts. And I love those Rev 7s. I remember when he gave me some cassettes back in the day, and I'm like, Bill, this is yours? You have more music that sounds exactly like Ozzy Osbourne? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, this is amazing. So I always love being supportive of Bill Mention and his music. On the extreme metal on Bombworks, one of them, and you don't hear people talk too much about this album. It came out later, like maybe 2000. Oh, it was 2000 because we're putting out the 25th anniversary edition. A band that was on Take Hold Records back in the day, which I don't remember if Under Oath was on Take Hold Records, but it was some of those same bands back in the day, and a band called Narcissus. And the album is called New Wave Techno Homicide, and it's super creative, extreme metal, that metalcore.
Mm.
Um, I don't even know how to describe it. It's just so creative, man. And we're doing New Wave Techno Homicide, very limited, only I think I think we're doing 200 vinyl and 300 CD, so it's pretty limited. Also on Bombworks, we've been working with Neil from Screams of Chaos,
Hmm.
a band that Mike Rowe, is it Mike? No, Mitt, no, yeah, no, yeah, right.
Micro was with Tempest and Micro was 77s.
Um, who's the guy from Mortification? Which row is
Oh,
that?
Steve Rowe. Steve
Steve
Rowe.
Rowe, that's
Yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I knew I could remember. I knew
Yeah.
I was thinking the wrong row. I don't know why Christian music has to have so many, but hey, I'm glad we do.
Yeah.
And anyway, so he really got them a name, Screams of Chaos, back in the day. And Neil is the main guy behind it. He worked tirelessly, he's super gifted. He lived with Man of War, the band Man of War, fighting what is it, fight the world or fight the earth or
Yeah, I
fight
remember
something.
them.
Yeah, it was. I love that album, and he lived with Man of War for 10 years. If only he could tell the stories. And but we're doing the extreme metal Screams of Chaos as a 3 CD set, and I may indulge it and do a 100 unit vinyl pressing. We're doing most of the Atomic Opera,
Nice.
uh, including some pretty rare stuff.
Cool.
Probably going to do Weapons of Warfare. I'm out of the vinyl. Picture disc was the last thing we had. We're probably going to do a double LP with all the weapons demos as a gatefold. We're going to do Jacob's Dream. We're going to do Drama of the Ages on CD and vinyl, and then the self-title on vinyl. We've already done the CD. I think we're going to do a Spanish White Cross album. Rex had this gal from Brazil do Spanish lyrics to classic White Cross songs, and I think we're going to do a really small CD pressing of that. It sounds amazing, and we're going to try to make it, have like words, the liner notes and everything in Spanish and English, so people can read it in other languages.
Yeah.
Um, Jimmy Brown's been working on a new Deliverance album for a few years. One day we'll hopefully see that.
Yeah.
I'm pretty excited. We may have some classic Daniel Amos that's never been on vinyl before, so we'll probably do those.
Can I ask you a question right
Yeah,
there?
yeah.
Myself being a big Daniel Amos fan, um, hold on, I'm having a little brainwave here. It's the last in the Alarma Chronicles that hasn't been released.
Oh, Fearful Symmetry.
Man, is that ever going to come out?
I think it is, and I've been talking to their camp about that, and there was real positive movement there. So that to me is musically, lyrically, Fearful Symmetry. It's to call it royalty is almost a disgrace. Like it's so good.
It's
Like it's
great.
that good.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know that I'll be doing both CD and vinyl, but I'll probably do one.
Okay.
At least that's the discussions. There's nothing that's been set in stone. There are no concrete plans. I'm just saying there's been discussions and nods of the head, like, yeah, we should get around to doing that kind of a thing.
I hope you will.
And then let's see. The rest of the stuff is mostly mainstream, I think. Oh, we got Triton. We got some Triton stuff coming, a best of.
Yes.
And there's no songs that haven't been released, but these songs were specifically selected by Larry Dean, who is a treasure. Like whatever you've seen from him on Facebook, he is that way legitimately in person, but better. Like I have known him for so many years. I have not one thing that isn't glowing to say about him. And trust me, I've worked with a lot of bands and I got some
Super
bad
nice to
songs,
us. Yes.
but he is the real deal in every possible way. I love him, but he did extended liner notes for each and every song. That booklet is 16 pages, no lyrics. It's all him writing about Triton, writing about those songs. It is going to be a real amazing release. And we're not going to charge a lot for it because I know it's a best of, and I want people to buy it if only for the booklet. So we're going to keep it at like $12.95 or something like that. It's going to be real affordable, and we're only going to do 300 CDs of that as well. So, and eventually, I think we're going to be putting out a Triton DVD
Cool.
as well.
Yeah.
We got to see how that works. We've talked about doing some glass harp vinyl with Phil Keggy. I'm excited about that. We've got a bunch of Lizzie Borden titles. I don't know if you're into Alice Cooper. Lizzie Borden is
Remember
sort of
Lizzie?
super good. We're doing Stuck Mojo reissues, In This Moment reissues, Quiet Room. Lethal was a mainstream band from back in the day that's real heavy. Nasty Savage was really good, and a thrash band called Eviction. I think Eviction was thrash as well. And okay, so we did an Art of Anarchy album called The Madness that has Scott Stapp from Creed on it. Like,
Really?
who would have ever thought in a million years some kid from Iowa, Southeast Iowa, in the middle of cornfields would put out a release with Scott freaking Stapp on it? That Art of Anarchy album is tremendous. And the Votto brothers, who are really the ones that started the band and own the band and take care of it and nurture it, they reached out to me. They were so pleased with the Madness reissue that we did that they're like, hey, our debut album is 10 years old this year. Can you put out a 10-year anniversary album? Well, if a band reaches out to me and they're like, we'd love for you to do this, we'd be supportive, then it's a no-brainer to me. And guess what? Lead singer Scott Whalen from Stone Temple Pilots.
Yeah.
So, again, we're not doing a giant pressing, 300 vinyl, 500 CDs, but I'm pretty pumped about putting out that album as well. And then we're pretty soon we're going to launch pre-orders for Fate's Warning.
Yep.
We only have a 2 CD set live over Europe, but we have CD and vinyl of 3 side projects of original vocalist John Ark. Are you guys familiar with them? I didn't know too much about John
I know
Ark,
who they are.
but he was one of the original vocalists on the classic albums. And it's a brilliant EP that's like 30, I think ours is going to be like 32, 33 minutes long on CD and vinyl. And then the guitarist, Jim Mateos, I don't know if I'm saying his name right, but he put out 2 instrumental albums. And they're very much like the keggy stuff, where it's like acoustic. It's not really, it might be electric, but it very has an acoustic vibe to it. I wouldn't call it new age, but it's definitely not like rock, hard rock or metal. It's not even very progressive, but it's like more like classical stuff. And so we're doing those on CD and vinyl as well. So we're going to really promote those. I think those will sound amazing on vinyl record. I love acoustic stuff on vinyl.
Yeah.
It sounds good. And then I'm pretty excited that we have Voivod Lost Machine live for a Record Store Day release for Black Friday.
Cool.
I love doing those. Voivod's amazing to work with. Amazing band, amazing to work with. But those are probably the ones that I can tell you about mostly right now.
Well, friends, that's a lot of great stuff coming up. Matt always delivers the goods, and BoonesOverstock.com is the place to check out and keep checking, and he posts news. Matt, I just want to say, thank you so much for I'm going to call it your years of service, because thank you for allowing us to still glean these wonderful titles, providing us with great Christian rock and metal titles as well as mainstream. And you've helped to keep the classics alive and the modern fresh. And we're grateful, Matt. And to the people that you've befriended over the years who've been very supportive of you, Matt, what would you wish to tell them?
Well, I'll tell you what. I just got back from being gone for almost a week at Audio Feed Music Festival. I got to see King's X. I got to meet Doug Pinnick for the first time in my life.
Wow.
And it was by accident. And then he's like, we talked. I was just sitting in my truck and, like waiting to go inside. And as I pulled up to stop and I stopped, he just wanders out. I go, "Hey, Doug Pinnick, my name's Matt Hunt." And so he comes over, we talk. Pretty soon he's like, "Hey, I want to get a selfie." So he pulled out his phone and took a picture of us. It was like the highlight of my life, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
And so then we got to see them play the next night at Audio Feed. But I was gone for like almost a week. And I ran a big sale, which is still going on at Boone's Overstock. A lot of $5 CDs, $10 vinyl, some vinyls even as low as $5. But I came back to an insane number of orders that were just sitting there. And then I had a bunch of purchase orders from distribution and I was overwhelmed. And I just want to brag on my customers, my friends, the people that have been supportive. I got one email from people about taking a while to get all their stuff shipped out, and it was super, it wasn't inappropriate at all. It's just like, "Hey, normally I get stuff right away. I'll bet you had a lot of response to your sale." And I just let him know, "Yeah, we're hopefully on Friday we'll get everything shipped out," which we did. And I just have the best buyers in the world. They are gracious, they are patient, and as well as I normally get your stuff shipped out right
Oh,
away.
yeah. Yep.
Like, and you get those tracking numbers and emails and notifications and stuff. So, but I just appreciate so much that I didn't get one nasty email, and we had a ton of orders. It was ridiculous. So it made me super appreciate the people that buy from Boone's Overstock, that these are great people, and I am happy. It makes me want to serve them even more, basically. Thank you to everybody.
Well, we're grateful for you, Matt. And Matt, we're going to wind it down here. And as you know, at the end of every show, we always like to keep the main thing, which is the Lord's word. And we try to equivocate something having to do with Christian rock and metal with the Lord's word. And Matt, I was just thinking about how, like I said, I view it as a service that, yeah, I know it came from your heart, hearing your story all those years ago, and you have a passion for that, and you're providing. You made something provided to us throughout the years. I've been doing business with you since the Rugged Cross Connections day.
Man, that blows me away.
Oh,
Oh my
so
gosh.
man, I just want to read this. This is Ephesians 4:11 through 13, and it says this. It says, "Furthermore, he gave some people as emissaries, some as prophets, some as proclaimers of the good news, and some as shepherds and teachers. Their task is to equip God's people for the work of service that builds the body of the Messiah until we all arrive at the unity implied by trusting and knowing the Son of God, at full manhood, at the standard of maturity set by the Messiah's perfection." And Matt, this music, since I first heard Petra, my first exposure to Christian rock
Mhm.
back in 1981, 82,
Man.
it's ministered to me. It's helped me stay focused. It doesn't take the place of God's word, but it keeps me focused on the things of God. And Matt, as I mentioned, I've had albums, Daniel Band and Petra and stuff, when my cassettes wore out and I didn't have anything to replace those that I could listen to. But you're one of those who've really helped to keep that available to me, and it means something to me. And I just want to thank you for that.
You
So,
bet. You bet. By the way, you mentioned Petra.
mhm.
I will go to my grave saying I think Petra did more for biblical literacy than any church in the world.
Yes.
Like, there's lyrics are almost straight out of the
Yep.
scripture. And
Yep.
what kids know that Kenaniah is in the Old Testament unless you're a Petra fan? Nobody knows about Kenaniah. Kenaniah is lost except for the church geeks, but not be Petra did more for biblical literacy. We have a debt of gratitude to them.
Case in point, I can't count the times our preacher was preaching and the message, and I'd be like, "Oh yeah, that's Grave Robber by Petra, or that's this song by
Exactly.
Petra."
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah. No kidding. Yeah.
Matt, thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Thank
Rex,
you for
anything
having me, guys. I super loved it.
you want to add anything, Rex?
No, it's always a pleasure. I know, Matt, maybe I bother you some. I
You
send
never
emails.
bother me. No, no,
It
you
just
don't.
it's always I knew this is how you'd be, but you're so kind in your emails. And so it just, yeah, thank you for all the stuff that you're doing. We really appreciate it as fans. And so just keep it up, please. We love it.
You got it, guys. You got it.
Guys, let's just wave goodbye to our friends out there, but
All
stick
right,
around
we'll
for
see.
one more moment, Matt. Take
We'll
care,
see you,
everybody.
everybody. All right.